are gathered in my name, I am there among them. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The title is Let's Get Real Here. I don't know where day 22 comes from, but I just thought it was a neat picture. So, I think there's a couple of ways to look at this passage. And I think the way this is most typically preached is, here's a great opportunity for me to call out someone else for something that they're doing, or the church calls someone else out, and it's a formulaic sort of thing of this is how I rebuke a brother, this is how I rebuke a sister. Maybe, but I think what Jesus is calling us to here is something, like Kate said, that's really hard. It's really hard for me. I don't know if it's hard for you, but this is a doozy. If someone sins against you, Jesus says, you're supposed to go talk to them about it. That's not easy to do, really. I mean, we have coping mechanisms for this, or I know I do. I had to go to spiritual direction and therapy as part of my seminary. My seminary required it. You had to have a year. And I had to figure out why it was that I didn't like confrontation in relationships. And it's hard to go to somebody that's hurt our feelings and say, you know what, I need to talk to you about it. But if we don't have authentic relationships with people. We just don't. I figured out in therapy, my family, I don't know what your family system is like. We all have family systems. My family system, we never had conflict unless it boiled over. You know, when I would come in at 4 in the morning and I was grounded and I did it for the 5th time in a row, then we had some conflict. But it was one-sided. But we didn't, I love you? What is that? We sat down at the end of the day, my father at the end of the dining room table. I never really thought about it, but I sat at the head of the table at the other end. My mother on my right, my sister on my left. We had dinners together every evening, and it was, how was school today? Oh, it was fine. Very good. Do you have tennis practice tomorrow? Yes. Okay. It was, I can tell you, I heard my mother one time in my entire life burp. Once. And she was mortified. My sister and I took her to lunch one day and she ate a taco. I remember it. She ate a taco salad. And she was sitting in the back of my Toyota, whatever car that I had when I was 16 or 17, and she went, Mom. And my sister and I went, oh my God, you burped. I remember it 40 years later or whatever. So we did not have authentic relationships because we had no conflict. We're all born this sort of rough stone, and we think that our mother is an extension of us, and we're little tyrants, and we think that the world revolves around us and our needs. And then we get a little older and we find out that mom and dad are actually separate human beings, and that they have needs that are different than my needs. And it makes me, and as we go through life, we find where the stone and through relationships were knocked around and slowly, hopefully, smoothed and polished. But it typically requires some healthy confrontation. And I think Jesus tells us a lot of theological things, a lot of comforting things. But this is when I think this is basic knowledge about how do we live in relationship with each other. When I joined Marta's family, oh my gosh, they tell each other they love each other. I was like, what? Her kids, after about 2 weeks, were like, I love you, Charlie. I'm like, I don't even know what to say to that. My father at Easter one year was driving this SUV, and Marta climbed in the passenger side, slipped off her little heels, and crawled across the seat and gave him a kiss and said, I love you, Dad. And my dad literally burst into tears. Because we didn't have authentic relationships in my family. I'm going to show you a video clip. Another person who doesn't like authentic relationships is named Archie Bunker, and I just... This is the episode where Edith confronts Archie for the first time. And I want you to maybe think about, stand up for yourself and say what my needs are, and if necessary, take 2 or 3 people with you, and if the person refuses to listen.
You can't run away from a problem. You're the best proof of that. You're hiding. You're escaping into the security of the kitchen like a child trying to return to the womb. No sex while I'm in. Who's going to sit on side? She wants to say that? Let her write the dear baby. I'll read about it in the paper. I'm afraid she might be right. That's it, Arch. You can't accept anything new like fair fighting. You can't take change. There's a technical term for guys like you. There's a technical term for guys like you. That's your answer to everything. Total inability to face reality, so you give it the raspberry. You got a point. You can't run away from the truth, Arch. What the hell you run away from home? That call for me?
No, it's Cousin Estelle. She called to say that they can't make it next week.
Oh, gee, what a shame. To what do we owe this misfortunate fluke of luck?
Well, I'm very busy. We have a lot of sick animals to look after.
Well, that's what he ought to do. Stay there, stay there. When the dog is throwing up, he wants to know his own doctor's in town.
I still can't make it. I guess you're off the hook, Ma. So forget it.
That's right, forget it. And stop steaming your mother up over nothing.
Nothing.
That's right, nothing.
What you think is nothing may be something to me. Just like what's nothing to me is something to you. Only I would never say to you, you're nothing is nothing, because it's something to you.
I don't know what the hell you just said.
I just said that you ought to respect my feelings sometimes.
I always respect your feelings. Now sit the hell down.
No! I ain't gonna sit down just because you tell me to sit down.
Well, as long as you're up there on your feet, what do you think about getting me a beer?
No, I ain't gonna get you a beer just because you tell me to get you a beer.
Well, what would you think about shutting up?
No, I ain't gonna shut up. I got a right to talk just like I did to you.
You're gonna do what I tell you to do or else.
All right, fine.
Oh, God. I'll go to Kelsey's.
No!
Yeah, I'll go to Kelsey's now.
No, you can't.
Look at this, she's charging.
Finish the fight.
Oh, no, I'm getting away from you, Edith.
No, you ain't. No, you can't.
Oh, yes, when I come back from Kelsey's, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sleep on the sofa.
No, you ain't.
No, you
No,
ain't.
you ain't.
Yes, I am.
No, you ain't.
Why ain't I?
Because I'm gonna sleep on the ground.
No, you aren't.
It's funny. It's funny, but there's a lot of truth in that. Jesus is talking about something, and it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. Can I get my next slide? And then there's other instances. I think it's interesting the way he does this. If someone does something to you that hurts your feelings, we're supposed to go to that person and say, hey, when you did X, it made me feel Y. And then if they won't listen, take a couple other people, and if necessary, you tell the whole community about it. I don't know. That's a stretch maybe too far for me. But I'm not a perfect follower of Jesus either. But then I think he says something interesting too. And we all know people like this, and maybe sometimes we're a little bit like this ourselves. If the person, we all know people who, I don't care what it is, it's never their fault. It's never their fault. They'll never take accountability for anything. They'll never say, wow, you know what, I'm sorry I did that. Can you tell me how it made you feel, and can you help me not do that again? But I do want to say this. Jesus then says, if they refuse to take any accountability, if they absolutely cannot be reasoned with, then you treat them as a pagan or a tax collector. You know, Jesus said we're supposed to love our enemies. How do we take that? I think it means we don't have to have a close relationship with someone who hurts us, particularly kids who come from abusive families, people in abusive relationships. We can decide, I'm going to treat you as a pagan or tax collector. I don't have to have a close relationship with you because it's not helpful for me. And to me, this is just a perfect encapsulation of Jesus telling us, here's the importance of community, and here's the links that we're to go through in order to maintain it. And when we can't, then here's what we do. Can I get my next slide? I thought this was a great article in the Wall Street Journal. Bobby and Lou have been friends for 60 years, and they figured out how to stay friends. Less than 40% of Americans now say that they have a best friend. Communities are, I don't know if it's all our social media or what it is, but we've got to get back to where we can figure out how to have authentic relationships. And I have found for me, I can't live in relationships with people, particularly those that I'm close with, and hold things back and dance around things. I just can't do it anymore. And I think when you do, you have inauthentic relationships, and sooner or later that friendship's going to go away. Can I get my last slide? I love this article too. You want to search for this. It's in a magazine called The Atlantic, which is a wonderful publication. Authentic relationships and community. As I wrap up, you know, as 10,000 plus churches evaporate every year, I would say more than ever, we need each other. We do. We need each other. In times of our lives, it's great to go out into the wilderness or the desert and find ourselves. But when it comes to lifelong learning, it takes a community and it takes authentic relationships. And I'm grateful for what we have here. I'll just end it there.